Well, it's the third week of LCS with coverage brought to you by Alienware. I'm joined right now by Nick and Inero Smith from Golden Guardians to talk about how things are going. It's the first day here of the week, and
Yep.
and I was told before this Inero that you had to change. So do you have clothes on underneath that sweatshirt?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I was just taking my my dress shirt off.
okay, I got you.
That was it.
You didn't want to wear the dress shirt for the interview?
No,
Okay,
prefer not
so
to.
you're
I don't
bare
like wearing dress
chested
shirts.
underneath the hoodie.
Bare chested underneath the hoodie.
Interesting. Okay, I'll try not to think about that while we're conducting this very serious interview.
It'll be tough, I'm sure.
Um, one, do you want to come on Hotline League anytime in the future? We're booked this week, but anytime because we haven't had you on in a while.
Yeah, sure, man.
Okay,
I'm down.
good,
I don't mind.
good to know. Uh, Secondly, I want to talk a little bit about Golden Guardians and the position that's in because I watch these co-streams, and
Yeah.
they are not they range from being like sad to perhaps aggressive about Golden Guardians and people's disappointment of the performance. So I guess I would say how are you navigating this? Because I know you've been on some tough teams before, but I definitely feel like the Golden Guardians roster this year, you guys are it is the most development roster you've ever had. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of curious how this is going for you.
I mean, it's a lot of stuff got to catch people up on. I think the biggest thing mainly is just the nerves aspect of it, which you can get a rough idea for how people will respond under the new type of pressure. And even though it's online, it's like that pressure's still there. But it takes a bit for guys to actually acclimate to that. I think one of the promising things on our end that I'm more happy with is just that everyone recognizes the windows and the timers like we're trying to get better at. Like today, for example, it's like we know what we're having to do, and it's the hesitation on that aspect that ends up killing us. And it's the hesitation. It's like in this case, it wasn't even just like us dying that's causing us to get behind. It's just the lack of action in a moment where we know we need to take action kind of dooms us. And I think that's happened in a lot of our games. I'm sure people like watch our games and they'll see us at like a dragon fight or something where we had leads. And it's like, oh, we just wait too long. And eventually they all surround us and we're just fucking dead, you know? Um, Working on breaking that with guys is tough, but like, bro, we kind of expected it coming in. Like, we shouldn't be coming in and just like shitting on people. Like that would be bad. That would be bad for the league as a whole. Like that would be a pretty bad look. So like it takes time. I'm confident in the guys, and for me, like I just want to give them the chance. And I told them that, like everyone that coming in, like I'm giving you the chance to fuck up, make mistakes. It's fine. So I'm more disappointed when we go out and it's just like, oh, we didn't really do anything. Like that sucks. Like I hate to see it. We've done that in a few games, and it's just like we can't do that. It's a waste. But I expect like we're gonna make mistakes and be behind. So it happens. Just trying to give them the chance to learn from it.
And do you have to create some sort of like bulwark basically for the guys to deal with not only the losses but also just sort of like the community criticism? Because obviously you've been on teams that have struggled at times in the
Yeah.
past, but like this, I guess just because of the situation it's in, also the fact that you guys are playing 50% more games than normal with the change, it's like
Yep.
how do you help these guys deal with like just repeated losses and knowing that like the outcome is often going to be a loss?
I mean, you got to help talk them through that stuff, but usually it's just about like setting the expectations yourself. Like they have to know what looks like growth to them so they can come out and feel like, okay, I lost, but at least I got better at this. So in the future, like maybe I won't lose because of this situation. I'll lose because of something else that I can learn from, or I'll win because like I've reached that point where I can consistently do this. Um, it's usually just expectation setting. I actually think you asked me that question a long, long time ago with a different roster. It was the same answer.
I mean,
Just
you've been on a lot of. You have not been on like the
yeah,
the champion rosters, right?
kind
But
of
you
like
like this. You like developing players, right? So
yeah,
this is
like
not a struggle for you.
I prefer doing this. Like I prefer working with guys that are young, and then like if they go on somewhere else and they're in a winning situation, like I'm happy for them. Like that's what I want. Um, so it doesn't bother me. I am just wanting these guys, go in, mess up a little bit, make some mistakes, learn from it. I'm not going to kick you because you're making a mistake. I'll kick you if you're not, putting up the effort and you're constantly making the same mistake, not improving. But if you're making a mistake that's different, learning from it, and I'm seeing you getting better on other things, then I'm happy. But, mixed bag of things. We've gotten better at some stuff, slipped up on a few things. Just takes time.
Can you give me any insight into what it's like working with the players? I don't need like a full rundown of all 5 of them or anything like that, but just like
Yeah.
I think in part it's easy for people to flame them or like pick at them because these are all generally fresh faces, I guess, with the exception of Stixay. So I don't know if there's anything interesting you wanna tell or just sort of talk about these guys in general, some facts or something that would be interesting.
Some facts about them.
Well, I mean, like their
I guess,
story, right? Like, what is it like working with
yeah,
them? What's their personalities? What do you see in them that makes you excited to work with
yeah.
them?
Um, so what I like about Ethan or Iconic, generally guys that play the pool of champions that he has and the way that he plays in scrims come with like a massive ego attached, where you have to play the game around what they're doing, and they're kind of like take what I think about this game or leave it. Like I'm not going to accept if you think differently, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some teams need that because everyone else is just willing to do whatever he does. Ethan's really good about playing those champions and playing around what the team needs, and it's more so us enabling him around that, which is a pretty unique, thing to navigate. Like you kind of got to get everyone else on the same page with him and how he wants to play the game as a carry and how to enable a carry jungler, rather than just having the carry jungler like tell you like I need this from you in the game. We're teaching everyone like what a carry jungle needs so they can actually play around that themselves. Which is unique. It's a different challenge, but I like it. It's a different approach. He's very receptive, so he's willing to change around things too. Working with Spooks, our positional coach for him, it's been very helpful. Aiden or Niles, coming from Maryville together with him, like obviously everyone knows about him. He's a funny guy. I think he's good, and he gets a lot of shit from people, which is to be expected because he's dying in these situations. And sure, he doesn't have to die as much as he is, but he's learning a lot from what he's doing. And yeah, it doesn't show on stage all the time, but it's because of like other reasons in the game too, not necessarily just him. I'm telling you, for the most part, like when he's playing around, like what's happening, like I don't know, maybe like 75% of the times that he dies, he's like doing something with like the team in mind, and it messes up, makes a mistake around it, which again, team thing. I don't know. It's fun working with all these guys. I don't know, it's just a young group, and they all want to learn. So it's just it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a good challenge.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit because obviously right now the conversation is so much about the import rule. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who instigated this. I don't know who asked so many questions, but
Could have been you, Travis.
somehow we have arrived at this moment where Voyboy is on the stairs doing a video talking about it.
Is he actually?
Yes.
Did I miss that?
we've hit Voyboy stair moment. So
Okay.
you're an interesting person to talk to about this because I think you, as we just discussed, you're not always interested in working with the teams that are like, we're going to import some world champions. It's like, not only have you worked with the Niles of the world, like collegiate players in North America, but you've also brought over talent from regions like OCE. So I guess understanding perhaps the politics of it are difficult for you working on a team, but what is sort of your stance on all this, and what's your take?
Yeah, well, it's probably pretty clear from my past that I personally like helping provide opportunities and create opportunities for people that don't necessarily get the chance to have it. So like OS players, Turkish players, like when I brought over FBI, Lost, Closer, those guys. It's like that feels great for me. Like, even though they're imports, it's like they didn't necessarily have a chance, so it's like looked at a little bit different. No one looked at them the same way they looked at, bringing like Faker over or something like that, right? So I love opportunities like that, and I think that's great. So in the same vein, like I'm more on the side of like I like American players like getting the opportunity to play, and I think the reason that
And
that
Canadians,
feels weird,
presumably.
Canadians, like North American players, I think the reason that feels bad for a lot of people to say is it is kind of weird to like open it up when you look at like the NFL and NBA and like everyone is bringing people over from wherever. But for me personally, like, hey, I'd like a region where if everyone's gonna have like it locked to the region, like you can only have 2 imports over here, 2 imports over there, like just keep it the same here. It's kind of weird to change that up otherwise. Like it's literally just a weak ass approach to say like we need help to do this. Like, okay, well fuck, give it to every other team then. Or like every other region. I mean, if we're gonna not have imports, like is LPL also gonna not have import restriction? They can import whoever they want. Europe's gonna have like no import restrictions, import whoever they want. Does that suddenly fix it for NA? Like, I don't know, dude. What's the change really? For me, like I look at it and I read the conversation, I see what everyone's saying, and I get where they're coming from, and I think it's kind of a cop out. It's kind of just like you've given up. Like, look, we're never going to be good enough because we have to have 3 American players. Like, we suck. Um, that's just so like sad to hear because it's just been so poorly done. Like, I look at the Australian aspect of things of Aussie players coming over. Like, you look at like Lost and Closer now, right? Or Lost FBI Closer. The FBI Closer one, everyone like super respects them now. You know, they're like, oh, these players are insane. Like, they're so good. Like, they're imports, but like no one would have thought of them. They not just gotten the chance to come over here. And then a bunch of like Australian players got picked up even before the, the like whatever the OPL died out.
Yeah.
And they didn't count as imports anymore. People were like picking them up, like, oh, maybe they're good. Like, we can try these guys. Everyone just waits for someone else to find like someone good, and then they just try to copy it. Like, it doesn't feel like we try to build up anything. We just try and like find the shortcut. Like, oh, okay, like maybe this will work. Like, oh, those guys from over there are better. Like, yeah, let's pick them up. Happened when we like first got and we're like importing Korean players over to initially start everything. Like, wow, the Korean league's really good. Let's pick some of those guys up. They're all going to be just as good. Like, just do that. And I get the approach, but it just feels like a little bit of a cop out, you know? And it's kind of sad to hear. It's kind of sad that that's an approach that people want to take. I get it. I don't agree with it. I would prefer not to do it. I'd rather us just accept, like, hey, we messed up on doing a lot of things. We messed up on developing people in the long run. We messed up on just all of this. Like, accept some accountability for it instead of pointing the finger at, like, oh, it's just because this team's doing bad, or it's, oh, this team is doing bad. Like, oh, this region has this and we don't. Like, yeah, we got a lot of infrastructure problems here. We should be honest about that and try to look for solutions around that. And I don't know. That's what I would prefer. But I don't have the full picture of things. I'm not in the owners' meetings. I'm sure the owners are looking at graphs of profits and viewership and running the numbers on that shit.
Why don't you you demand to be in them? Tell Hunter I demand it.
I could care less. I could care less to be in those meetings. I don't know. I've interacted with people that have been owners on other teams. Just rather not. I was on.
Is it also that bad interacting with with Hunter on the ownership side?
Working with Hunter and Kirk and them has been really chill.
Yeah,
I like those guys. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd just rather not.
Just as an aside to this, and I know you don't have another meeting because I know we're going, or another interview, right? Because I know we're kind of going over.
Yeah. Okay. No, I don't have.
Just as an aside to this stuff, is it? Because you and I never really talked about the OPL and OCE stuff, like opening up and becoming like part of North America. You know, are you an advocate of that? Do you think that's good? Because that does kind of break the previous import rule. Do you think that those players should be allowed to go to any other all the other regions? And do you think there are other regions like OCE that should have the LCS? Kind of your full take on that.
For me, the way I look at it is like I think that if you can't be like if you don't have a region for yourself, like I don't know, you live in a country that's not currently like OS, for example, like now, like they don't have a league for themselves for Australia. You probably just shouldn't count as an import under Riot's rules for any region. Like I personally think that like Australian players probably should be able to go to Europe and LPL, for example, like Japan, Korea, like whatever, and not count as an import. Or they probably wouldn't have, but it just kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like what makes it so that you can just go to NA? That kind of seemed like a hey, let's just give these guys a little something, you know, maybe help them out. That's how I think it should work, at least. But what was the other part of your question?
Oh, I guess just curious if you felt like there were other regions where we should see something similar to what OCE did. But I guess you kind of answer that, right? It's more about if they don't have a league anymore, they should be able to go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's kind of my belief on it. But I don't know if there's anywhere else that
Antarctica.
I guess there's other countries that don't have a league. Yeah, the Antarctic League probably doesn't exist. If you're a scientist hanging out up there, and you're playing League and you're Challenger with the one person on your server, maybe you could just come play pro here. I don't know.
Very good. Well, hey, this has been a great discussion. I appreciate it as always. Looking forward to having you on Hotline League in the near future again. As it's been a bit, as I realized as we did this interview. Anything you want to say to any of the fans out there?
Yeah, just thanks to the guys that stuck around. I know the whole change up between rosters is probably disappointing for people. It was disappointing for me to have to say goodbye to old friends and teammates. They moved on somewhere else to compete. Hoping to build these guys up so they'll be in a similar spot somewhere along their future. so that, they're guys that you're happy to cheer for. And it'll take some time, but I'm working at it. All of our coaches are working around the clock to work and help these guys out. And players are putting in a lot of their heart and effort too. Just keep supporting them. There's a lot of negativity out there, but those guys obviously love to see, positive support. So appreciate it to the guys that are giving that.
Yeah. Thanks. Really appreciate having a conversation with you. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS, import rules and otherwise, right here on my YouTube channel. Did you know that Alienware actually gives me a ton of free reign to say how I want to promote their products, and allows me to make really unique outros? And so I'm going to just say, by the way, you can go check out their stuff in the description, but I think they would not mind if I just took a little bit of a different tack this time and said, thank you to Alienware, but also, why don't you go, if you enjoyed this interview, tweet at the player that was in it and say something nice about something that you thought was interesting, or maybe something you've enjoyed about their play recently. Because I think in the space that we are all in, sometimes it's a lot easier to criticize than to praise. And I don't know if people realize how nice it is to sometimes just see a nice message from somebody. So again, if you enjoyed this interview or there was something that you thought was quite fun about it, go ahead and hit up the player and let them know. I'm sure they'd appreciate hearing you say that. Let's just go hit them up on Twitter or Instagram or anywhere else.